Hello, grade 2, and welcome to the Bible lesson for today. In today's Bible lesson, Jesus tells another parable. A parable is a story that teaches a lesson. And the inspiration for today's parable, for today's story that teaches a lesson, this inspiration came from Peter. Peter asked Jesus about forgiveness. He wanted to know how many times would be proper for him to forgive his brother. Jesus understood Peter's question was not to be proud or to be a bother to Jesus. Jesus understood that forgiveness is not easy. Jesus understood that very well. Jesus showed mercy to Peter in his answer because Jesus explained forgiveness by giving an example from the kingdom of heaven. Jesus said, "The kingdom of heaven is like," and then he told his story. And the story teaches a great lesson, but Jesus also understood, and he still understands, that he's comparing this to the kingdom of heaven. The kingdom of heaven needs God. And Jesus is asking something of his people by explaining forgiveness to Peter, knowing that it can only be accomplished. The way that he is explaining forgiveness can only be accomplished with the help of God. As you read today's story, I want you to be encouraged. Forgiveness is not easy. I know. Sometimes we think about forgiveness and we think, is it easy to forgive someone? Well, that depends on what they did to me. Of course, sometimes it's very easy to forgive someone. That's the wrong way to think about forgiveness. The wrong way to think of forgiveness, because Jesus is asking us to forgive our brothers for everything. Jesus, in this story, through this story, is saying that God doesn't think about forgiveness in the way that we do. God doesn't think about forgiveness in that way because he doesn't think, I'm going to forgive them for these things, but not for those things. That's too big of a sin. Because Jesus died for all sin, and his forgiveness, and it covers all. So he says, just as God has forgiven us, so we are to forgive others. Remember, I said that Jesus has explained forgiveness in a way that he understands that we cannot do it on our own. Jesus is asking us to do a big thing. We can't do it on our own. And he does that on purpose because he knows we need God. So as you read today's story, I want you to think about that and then talk about it with some people in your family, maybe just one person in your family, and spend some time to pray about it. Ask Jesus to forgive you and ask Jesus to help you to forgive the people who have done things that maybe you haven't forgiven them for yet. And then I want you to do an activity. You have a choice. You can write about those thoughts that I just talked about, or you could do a Bible pop-up page to help you remember the story, so that whenever you remember the story, you will be able to then think about the lesson that it teaches. That's why Jesus told these stories. He told these simple stories so that we would remember and that we would learn from these stories too. Have a great day, and I hope you are encouraged today.